أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Bismillah, with Allah's name, the merciful, benefactor, the merciful Redeemer. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the systems of knowledge, the merciful benefactor, the merciful Redeemer. Thee we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those who, the way of those who, show us the straight way, the way of those who go not astray, nor call your wrath. I mean,
Assalamu alaikum, with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. I openly bear witness that there is but one God, the Lord of all systems of knowledge, whom we properly call Allah, and that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the seal of prophethood and a mercy to all mankind. Assalamu alaikum, dear family. It's good to be back with you again and to see you. Our topic today is chromosomes, gender specific and the natural human being. And our guest speaker is our dear beloved Imam, Dr. Nasir Ahmad. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Nasir Ahmad.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How are you today?
I'm fine, young lady. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, it is so nice to see you. And we're ready to get started. I don't want to take up any time. This is an extremely important topic.
Yes, it is. And we're so thankful to Allah for your leadership. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. With the name of Almighty God, Allah, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. There's only one Lord and supreme being over the entire universe, not just for humans, but for the whole universe, of which it is constantly evolving, just as the human being is evolving. And we thank him for his messenger, our prophet Muhammad, the seal, the last and the final prophet sent to all of humanity. And we thank him for the religion of Al-Islam, which is the religion of all of the prophets before Muhammad. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So we want to begin by saying that I was under the impression that this would be only audio and not video. Had I known, I would have had my PowerPoint presentation ready. I have it, but I just don't know how to hook it up, you know, where the viewers could see it. So I promised Sister Fitrah that we would do a part 2, because sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, as we have heard over the years. But you know, the natural human being is a result of chromosomes, which she stated. And our concern is staying in touch with the original identity of the male and the female, because the male and female have sacred roles, sacred, or you'll say holy, you know. And what we mean by the term holy, it doesn't mean the person has his hands together like this. That's not holy. Or somebody wearing a thawb or a long robe. That's not holy. Holy means to be intact. Holy means to be unchanged from the day that you came from the womb of your mother. That's holy. The earth, when it is unchanged, is holy. Any planet in the galaxy or in the universe that has not been touched by man is holy. So it means the original state that Allah created. And so the genes and the chromosomes that result in the male and the female is a holy entity, you know. Although man has tampered with it we still want to deal with this as our problem. Now, I want to read something from the Quran here because there's great wisdom in the Quran. And it says, minkum, from you all, min dhakarin is from a male, our untha, or from a female. Then it says, ba'adukum, and each of you, min ba'adin, you are from one another. That's a better translation for those who speak English. So the Quran is letting you know that you can't come here just by one entity. You have to have two entities. You have to have two causes, you know? And if you've ever seen a human being with only one ear, it'll scare you to death. If you've seen a human being with only a right arm and then the left arm on the right side, where you have two right arms, it would scare you to death. So our life is based on diversity. Now, the problem is most people are confusing the soul with the physical body. The soul of every human being is both male and female. The physical body is male or female. The body is not both. The soul is both. So therefore, the soul having both of these attributes, it will feed the body's one identity, being male or female. Now, I'm going to use some of us, we were in biology in high school, some of us in college. So I'll go over some terms because some people say, oh, that's too much religion. There's no reality. But I want to prove the Quran through science. You know, you can do this with the Quran. Matter of fact, the sciences, they prove scripture, no matter what it is, Bible or Torah, either right or wrong. So anyway, to give an example, you have a mother and a father, and they contribute to your life. The female has chromosomes, and you have X and Y chromosomes, just like the alphabet letter, X, Y, Z. So if you have two X's, two letter X's in the chromosome, that is a female, okay? I'm telling you scientific fact. I don't care how I put a dress on and some makeup, I don't have two X chromosomes, okay? And if I have one X and one Y chromosome, I am a male, okay? And so the gene combination is what we would call a genotype. So in other words, when my mother was pregnant with me and my father contributed to my development, my mother and father had a genotype, which means my mother had two X chromosomes. My father only had one X chromosome and one Y chromosome. Okay, that's the genotype. Means that it's potential there. It hasn't brought about my life. Now, in order to see what they had in them to produce me, you don't use genotype anymore. You use phenotype. So genotype is spelled Genotype, and phenotype is spelled Phenotype, like you type a letter, you know? So I'll use a different example so you can follow it a little bit better. If you have a $5 bill in your wallet and a $10 bill in your wallet, they are not manifest. We cannot see that. That is in your wallet. So that is like the genotype, means that it is there, but you can't see it. I'm trying to go slow so that there are a lot of people who can't follow this because, you know, we've been deceived in this culture. So I have to take my time because I was in that class too. Now, in the wallet is a $10 bill and a $5 bill. That is the genotype. That means that's the potential that you cannot see. Now, you can only take out one or the other. You can only take out a $10 bill, or you can only take out a $5 bill. So if you take out a $5 bill, now that is the phenotype. That is the expression. If we can all see what was hidden in the wallet. So the individual male, he is the phenotype of the potential of his mother and his father before he was born. And any female is the phenotype or the express type of the hidden, what was called genotype. So now, if the father has red hair, I'm going to take a real long course, but this is necessary. If the father has red hair and the mother has blonde hair, so there's a genotype, which means the child has the potential to having red hair or blonde hair. So as long as the child is not here, that's a genotype, means it's hidden. But once that baby is born, it's going to have one or the other hair type. So if the child is born with red hair, then that is the phenotype or the express type of the father. And the blonde hair would be the genotype that's still hidden that we don't see in the child. But now say they have a second child and it's a girl, let's just say, right? And now that girl is born and she has blonde hair. Now the blonde hair would then be the phenotype of the mother contribution. And in that girl, the brown hair, which is not manifested in that baby girl, is the genotype of the father. That's how it goes. And that's as simple as I can make this. Now, dear believers, here's the unique thing about the Quran. If you read chapter 23, verses 12 through 14, it says how man began as clay, then a sperm, and then he was a chewed up gum, then he got his bones and skin on his bones. You know the story. You know, it's chapter 23 of the Quran, verses 12 through 14. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because this is chapter 23 of the Quran, and it's giving you the stages of development of the human being extracted or evolved out of clay into his physical form. Now, what is so unique about that is that the human being 23rd chromosome is the chromosome that determines your gender, you know? And that's one of the miracles of the Quran. Here it is, we have these pairs of chromosomes. And let me see, I'm going to scroll through what I have here for you. And I wish I had known this. I'm trying to go through this and put it in words, whereas if I was able to do a PowerPoint, you could see it, and it's difficult to put a picture in words for some people. But anyway, the 23rd chapter of the Quran is talking about the development of the human being. And the 23rd pair of chromosomes in the human being is the same exact number, 23, which tells you that the Quran is spiritual, but it's also scientific. Here the Quran knew 1400 years ago that the 23rd chromosome is what determines male or female. That's a miracle. It's a standing miracle. And I tell people this all the time. You know, they say Jesus walked on water. Then show me. You can't show it. Moses parted the Red Sea. Show it to me. You can't go anywhere in the world and see footprints on water or two seas parted. You can't see it. But you can open up the Quran over and over again and you'll see standing miracles. I just gave you a miracle. And most people call it a coincidence. Well, you got about 6,000 coincidences in the Quran. And after a while, it stops being a coincidence and it starts to be a fact. But at any rate, I wanted to say that just for
Dr. Nasir, can I ask you a question? And the reason I want to do this is
Sure.
because I'm listening to you, and I did do a little studying before you came on, and so I want to kind of make this clear for the audience. So what you just said was because the topic is chromosomes gender specific. And
Right.
so the XX chromosome produces the female, and the
Yes,
XY chromosome produces the male.
correct.
So the answer to the topic right now is yes, chromosomes are gender specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the
Now,
reason,
go
okay, go
ahead.
ahead, dear.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
you go ahead. I'm going to ask you
Now,
another question though, but go ahead.
yeah, 'cause look here, we're gonna have to do part 2. You got me under a lot of pressure. I'm sweating. Sister Fitrah got me sweating.
No, that's not.
She have a lot of emails sweating.
Yeah.
We talk about her all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, we do across the country. She's a wonderful woman. The reason why we're emphasizing this is because in other scriptures, not the Quran, they blame the woman for the downfall of man.
Mhm,
This is important. You know, most people, this skips over their head.
mhm,
And the first man that was made was Adam.
mhm,
The first woman that was made was Eve.
mhm,
But what they say is that Eve came from the rib of Adam,
mhm,
meaning that the creation of the male and the female is not equal.
mhm.
You see, this is a problem. In the Quran, it doesn't say that. In the Quran, the woman is not taken from the rib of a man. In the Quran, it says the man and the woman are from the same one soul,
Mhm.
and that the soul split itself into masculine and feminine. Now, here's the point. I'm gonna show you about the genes. When you have the genes, God willing, you let me do this again. Please let me do this again.
I
I'm
will.
doing
I will, Dr. Nasir.
the
Inshallah.
gene, the chromosome looks like the letter H, a capital letter H in English. I wish I could do my hands.
Mhm,
I'm trying to make the letter H. That's
mhm,
the way the chromosome looks. One chromosome. If you split it in half, it looks like this,
mhm,
like one finger.
mhm,
Okay, so now at the bottom of the finger, as you go down the finger, you have locations where disease processes happen.
mhm,
Just like you have houses on a block,
mhm,
the chromosomes have locations on the chromosome where you can locate certain disease processes on the chromosome, just like you have an address to your house,
mhm,
2212, 2253, 22 so-and-so, like that, you see? So what they have done, they have taken the XX chromosome, which is who? The woman.
Yes.
They split it in half, and at the bottom of that 23rd, well, it may not be, it may be 23rd. At the bottom of it, they have a diagram, and in the diagram, the color is green. And they say at the bottom of this chromosome is where homosexuality is. But here's the problem. When you go down the chromosome in that manner, they call it a defect.
Mhm.
See? So if it's a defect, then homosexuality is a defect. This is
I
their
want you.
definition. This is not a Muslim definition. This is not a Nasir definition. This is not a Quranic definition. This is their definition in the empirical sciences. And they are wrong. They're wrong in two ways. Number one, they're wrong because the woman is not the carrier of a defect. She's not the carrier of a defect. And what they're doing, they're taking a misinterpretation from the Bible of Eve being the downfall of man, and they brought that into the laboratory. They brought it from the church into the college. This is where the danger is.
Okay,
So the Quran,
I'm going to stop you right there for a second because I do want to. I want to ask you this question. So the chromosomes determine the biological male and female, and there are very specific defined physical and mental characteristics. That's correct. We've agreed on that. What happens though, and we do know that defects are at the hands of the human being.
yes,
We know that. And
yes.
so I read that that in the early stages of the male,
right,
when because I want to separate I want to separate the for lack of a better word, the defect chromosome that man has tampered with, because we
Yeah,
know that
very good.
that's where it comes from.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Versus those who are just identifying in the homosexual community as a fad. I want to separate the two.
Thank you.
Because I'm hearing impaired, but no,
I
I'm
think the
hearing
whole
impaired.
culture is hearing impaired.
I'm hearing impaired, but that's different from somebody who pokes their ears out because they
That's
want to
correct.
be hearing impaired.
That's
So
correct.
let's separate the two in fairness. So
Mhm.
I read that that when a male does not receive enough testosterone early on in birth,
Mhm.
that what happens to him, though he develops biologically with male characteristics, his brain defaults to the female brain.
Yeah, but you know, there's no conclusive empirical evidence for that.
Okay.
That's a fallacy that they're using to justify homosexuality.
Okay.
You know, sex is biologically determined. And this is for us who are listening.
Okay.
But gender is socially constructed. It's a big difference. You
Okay.
see, my physical body, I don't have breasts. I don't have ovaries. So therefore, biologically, I'm not a female.
Right.
But socially, I can be tricked into thinking I'm a female.
Okay.
So I'm thinking upstairs that I'm a female, but there's nothing downstairs to confirm that I'm a female. So what comes first? What comes first is the biology.
Right.
The biology comes first, then the ideas come second.
Okay.
This is what people have to understand, because God knows that man will be confused. So before he's confused, God is going to give him a definite direction.
So the definite direction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us is that it is unacceptable for a man to have an attraction to another man. That's unacceptable. It's clear in the Quran that Allah has said that. Is that correct?
In all the scriptures.
Well, I'm just trying to, I'm just for the sake of conversation,
yes, ma'am.
clarity. I'm just trying to make sure that we're clear on that. But what happens when that young boy is given to, what is, I heard Imam Muhammad once say that there's a mental health problem that these, what they give themselves to. So let's just talk, let's distinguish between mental health influences but because you're saying to me that right now there's no clear evidence that if a male doesn't receive enough, because I read that the female brain is the default brain. That when there's not enough testosterone, that the brain, not the physical body, that determines that it is a male or female. But that brain gives itself to more female tendencies.
Okay, I got you.
So what do we do about that? What, how, and I know you're not a psychologist, but what?
Listen, you know, the analogy that I can give you and for all the viewers and the listeners is the same analogy for a person born with 6 fingers. Now, if he's born with 6 fingers, does that make him an octopus?
No.
Should he jump in the ocean? Here's what I'm trying to, you understand what I'm saying? So just because he could have 8 fingers, and he'd really be like an octopus. Is he going to give up his humanity because he has 8? No, he won't do that. You see? Because that means something has happened in the genetic processes to cause a variation in the genes, what they call alleles, you know, which is a shade of a gene, which means, in other words, if you're talking about being tall, let me use this example. You have the letter T, let's say that's for tall. That's a gene, right? Then you have a capital T, that would be for a tall person. Then you have an uncapital T, that would be for who? A short person. So that's the gene for height. So the height could be a tall person or the height could be a short person. You kind of see what I'm saying now?
Mhm.
Yeah. So when you have the choice between tall and short, you call it an Elyé. You see? Now, what happens is that our chemicals in industry, by intent, causes the deviation in a normal division of the chromosome, where they have to split up and then come back together. They cannot come back together in a normal way because it has been intended by industry. They
Mhm.
need this. I'll give you an example. You remember this because you're younger than me, but you know just remember this. Remember years ago when they wanted to have women to have a reduction in babies, right? They
Mhm.
had a medication they called thalidomide. And thalidomide was supposed to stop the woman from becoming pregnant. This is a real case. You can look it up on the internet right now. And
Mhm.
what did they do? Oh, we're going to give the women thalidomide, and therefore they won't become pregnant. Now they can have sex without being married, without having responsibility of taking care of children. So they thought. And what happened? The thalidomide backfired on them, and the babies were born deformed.
Mm.
So any deformity, see, Allah has proven this. Prophet Muhammad said that every animal is born without defect. So the
Mm.
people want to attack Prophet Muhammad, say, look, Islam is not right. The prophet, your prophet said that no animal is born with a defect. Look at this two-headed snake over here. Look at this two-headed sheep. You can go on the internet, you can see two-headed sheep, two-headed snakes right now. And if you're ignorant, you will say, yes, see, the Muslims are wrong. Look at the two-headed snake. Look, Prophet Muhammad is wrong. He's wrong in the minds of the ignorant people. But
Mm.
when you have a conversation like this, when people start naming drugs that causes the deviation in nature, then you realize that Prophet Muhammad was right.
Mhm.
So any deviation is, as you said, dear sister, man's interference with
Mhm.
the processes of nature.
Mhm.
Nothing comes here
Mhm.
unnatural unless man has interfered with it.
And
Next
I'm
question.
trying to have this conversation because you know, Muslims are kind of caught between,
Of course.
you know, uh,
Mhm.
that all people should be treated fairly and justly.
Of course.
And but at the same time, we have a position that we should
Yes,
take.
sir.
And
Yes,
that
ma'am.
position is stated in the Quran that it is unacceptable for those of like, it doesn't say anything about the woman, but I'm just assuming it means when it says man, it means
Yeah, it
human,
means
the
mankind,
human being
humanity.
should
That's right.
not be attracted or have relationship with the same sex. We have a question here, and I do want to open it up to questions because we need to have this conversation. Dr. Ramadan wants to come on too and say
Oh,
something.
excellent. Oh,
But hold
now
up,
I can retire now.
Marsha, give Dr. Ramadan permission to talk. But we have a question here, and because we need to have this conversation because the Muslim needs to understand the position that we should be standing on, even though we still would not hurt anybody.
Okay.
We don't want to see any harm to anybody.
Right.
So the
Well,
question is gender.
me-
The question is what happens when babies are born with both sexual organs. You just answered that. There's been some.
Oh, yeah.
I
want to come to that, but I want to go back to this earlier
Sure.
point.
Go ahead.
You know, we talk about treating everybody as a human being. Everybody is a human being by birth, but that doesn't mean they act on their humanity.
Right.
In other words, a man is a human, but if he murders another person, he left his humanity and he affected the humanity of the person who he murdered.
That's
So
right.
do we give him right? Do we demand rights that he have the right to murder?
That's right.
You see, give me my rights to murder somebody. Give me my rights to steal. No. So the same thing with the homosexual community. You a human being, but you left your humanity.
Right.
I'm sorry, this is the truth. You are either a male or a female. That's it. You know, now the two genders, they call it an hermaphrodite, which means here's a human being with both genitals, a vagina and a penis. I'm sorry, I had to make it plain so people won't think,
we don't.
hey, what are you talking about? Listen, the science is saying, yeah, you might have that, but one is going to dominate over the other.
Mm.
See, they won't talk to you like this. In the cell of every woman, there's called a bar body, B-A-R-R. Males do not have a bar body in their cells. Only women have this. Even if she has both sexes, she's going to have a bar body that the man doesn't have. And do you know when you wear a watch on your arm, you have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, like that, right? The bar body is in the position of clock number 5, which means you have to use your 5 senses. And it's also letting you know that when a woman dies, you bury her in 5 wraps, and you bury a man in 3 wraps. I'm trying to show you how the religion that we practice is in nature itself. You find this in nature. So, I mean, there's ways to differentiate what this person is that has both genitals. Again, that's not nature, that's chemical infusion into the water, into the soil, and other ways that have created this problem. It's not a natural birth.
And I just want to make that very clear. I want to make the distinction between those who have this problem, like I have a hearing impaired problem, or people are born crippled, or people are born blind. These are not natural things.
They're not natural.
And I want to make it clear from the kids down the street that just want to call themselves homosexuals. I do want to make that distinction. Dr. Ramadan, you want to say something? I want to bring him in here.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Salam, young man.
It,
I can look. I'm
it
going to
is
go on
good
vacation
to see you
now.
both.
I'm going on vacation. The real man's on now.
Oh, brother. Listen at you, brother, man. This is a most interesting discussion, and a very important one at this time. And all I want to just emphasize some of the things that you said already. It's important for us to remember there's no such thing as a gay gene. There's no gay gene. There's no genes that make us gay, whether have or don't have. We don't have such. There's a system established by Allah, and that system, though, can be influenced by other factors. It can be influenced by man, by environment, by chemicals, by radiation, by various things. It can be infused. And also the culture that over rests everything can impact. The genotype can be impacted, and the phenotype can be impacted by the culture. Okay, so it's important to realize that some people believe, even though they have their genotype is already fixed, that they are impacted by the culture, by the environment, by their understanding, by their upbringing, that they are gay or that they are leaning one direction or another, but that's cultural.
Okay.
And the mercy of it is this: Allah recognizes this. And it is not punished by them having such feelings until they act on them. We have all sorts of proclivities, things that we might want to do, things that we're tempted to do, things that we're may want to go out and do or whatever. But he rewards us if we restrain from doing that. He rewards us for the restraint that we imply. And only punishes us if we do those things. So they do have a problem, but we still have to show the mercy. But the system is set up, and the important thing is we are seeing so many more of such case today because of the chemicals in our environment. They have hormonal and estrogenic impact. And that's significant. It is the testosterone. Yes, we can incline toward femininity, okay, with more estrogenic hormonal chemicals in the environment, okay? And they are there in the food and pesticides and other things. and it's having the impact. And we know this, the doctors know this, because we, that's how we make the changement, the adjustments, the gender, they call it gender affirming adjustments medically, okay? And it's really just adjusting individuals to what they desire, not what they are, what they desire. So with chemicals. So this is important.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I'm clear on that, and Dr. Nasir, Dr. Ramadan, I'm clear on that, but I want to make sure that the listeners are clear on why we're taking that position. Of course, we understand, and I want to kind of go this step by step, because first, the guidance from the Quran. It says to us clearly that this is unacceptable, okay? Yeah. So that's why and then to move to the next step of that is that we must acknowledge that some people, even though that the chromosomes do dictate their physical characteristics, are impacted by all of these things that both you, Dr. Ramadan, and you, Dr. Nasir, have just pointed out. The influence of man and social behavior. So I just want to be clear on that, but there are those who are impacted like that. Like I am, again, I'm going to say hearing impaired, and people are very impatient with me because they don't remember that I'm hearing impaired. Yeah. But the point is that I am. And that the point is that there are some males who have not received enough testosterone in their makeup that gives them those strong male tendencies. Is this correct or not?
Right. Now, look, what people have to understand, we love the human being, but we hate the act. We have to separate the person from the action.
I understand.
Okay, and I think this is where the confusion is and where most religious people have tension. They don't know how to deal with this thing.
Right.
The man who's an alcoholic, we love him. My brother's an alcoholic. I love my brother. I don't like his alcoholism. You see, so I hate the act, but I love the person. The Quran says, Laysa dhakara kel untha. That's the Quran. It says, not is the male like the female. Plain, simple, you know? And one other thing I want to say this, because we have people who listen and they know Arabic, you know? And I want to say this for those who know the Arabic, because I've heard some Muslims who know the Arabic and they're trying to justify this. So for their sake, I want to straighten them out. You know, for those people you have in the Quran, tell you where it is. It's chapter 75, verse 39. I'm certain that's where it is. I'm going so fast, I might have it off. And if it's wrong, I'll give you the exact thing. Anyway, it says, Faja'ala, then he made. This is the Quran. Fa means then, Ja'ala means he made or he put. Min who? It means from him. This is very important what I'm telling you right now. From him, as Zawjain, the two genders. Zakara wal untha. Now listen, for the women, you are not the one that determines whether the child is going to be male or female. Good God Almighty. The Quran has exonerated the women, has freed the women from this burden of a lie. The average ignorant man will tell his wife, I'm going to divorce you because you haven't given me a son. And that ignorant man didn't realize he's the one that determines if it's going to be male or female. Isn't that amazing? This is a miracle of the Quran. Okay? Now, the reason why I'm saying this further is that the man should be the one now to really take the position against a homosexual or a lesbian, since he's the one that determines the gender. It shouldn't be the woman protecting that sexuality. It should be the man, because he's the one that makes the determination. Now, What I'm saying to you is in the Quran. I think it's chapter 75:39. Let me look at that. He's got a Quran here. Let me look at the Quran here. I want to make sure I give the right. Yeah, it is right. It's chapter 75:39. I'm looking at, I'm reading it there, but I'm coming from my mind, you know. But anyway, it says, and the two genders comes from minhu. If minhu means from him, if it was from you, a woman, it would say minha. And minha means from her. But the Quran makes it very specific. Minhu. So the one to be blamed for any gender, male or female, is the brother. Look how look how the Quran has freed the woman from all of those false innuendos and direct statements. This is why it's such a sacred book. Now, here's the other point. It's scientific, because you take this verse, go into any embryology, any course in embryology, or any course in medicine, any course in biology, go to any course in genetics, and take this verse there. They're going to tell you that the verse is right. And it's been there 1,400 years, and they just found this out maybe 100 or 200 years ago. That's amazing.
So for the listeners, and please, anyone who has a question, please send your question. So for the listeners, and I'm kind of being redundant, but I need to be. So the chromosomes do determine gender, and that is the biological sex, male or female.
Yeah.
And it is by definition the natural pattern by which Allah created the human nature, male and female, is clearly defined by physical and mental characteristics. It's clearly defined.
Yeah.
Let us talk a little more to that that alters it by the development of behavior and social influences.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
That's right. Okay. Remember now, this for your listeners. The human being comes into the world as an empty vessel, just like you buy a brand new car off the car lot. There's no passenger in that car. There's no driver in that car. Same with the human being coming from the womb of his mother. So now, after you purchase that car, now you start putting people in it. A driver, a passenger, 3 or 4 passengers. Sometimes they're passengers, sometimes they're criminals in that car. You can have the car and a man will come and hijack the car with you in the car. And I'm saying this as an analogy for the human being. The human being comes here innocent, with no sin, with no homosexual thinking, with no lesbian thinking. And somebody has to hijack that innocent mind and put those concepts in that mind, just like a hijacker comes and puts himself in your automobile. It is just that simple. The human being is a creature that is made by words, ideas, and concepts. His body is made by steaks and potatoes and carrots and apples. That's the physical body. But the thinking is made by words. And if you put the wrong words in a human being's ears and his eyes, you're going to create a false world of reality for the person to live in. Listen, the human being lives on the earth. It's different between earth and world. The earth is what's under your feet. The world is what is in your mind. Big difference. So this is how you create the homosexual and the lesbian. And this conversation is not a conversation to berate them. This is liberation talk for the homosexual and the lesbian. They need to hear this conversation because they didn't know that they've been lied to and tricked. It's just like the African American. When we were young, Fitrah, when we were teenagers, 5 and 6 years old, we were called Negroes and colored. And we took that on. Yes, I'm a colored person. I'm a Negro person. And then we were told in my family, I was the blackest one in my family. Everybody in my family, like white people compared to me. And they said, look at that black nigger. They're my family member with his nappy hair, that big lip. This is my family member talking to me like this. I'm 4 or 5 years old, all right? So now the culture, my immediate family culture and the culture in the neighborhood made me hate my black skin, made me hate my nappy hair. I was ashamed to be what God made me. And it took me 50 years later, or whatever the time was, to hear a liberating message, to liberate me from self-hatred, that it was nothing wrong with my black skin, there was nothing wrong with my nappy hair, etc. Well, likewise it is for the lesbian and the homosexual. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons for lesbianism is the story in the Bible that the woman has brought about the downfall of man. What woman wants to be in a category like that, that I have brought down the first man that God ever made? You see what I mean? Yeah. So these are, we had to put all of these together because it makes up the composite mentality of the individual. And our listeners and viewers have to understand, you know, if you take a car and you take all the parts of the car apart and lay it on the ground, all of the parts, every single part of the car, the average person can't put their car back together because it doesn't know what part goes where. Well, the same thing it is with the human mind. The majority of the human beings do not know how to construct a mind. So we would put.
And for the purpose of this, Dr. Ramadan, I want to give you, I want you to get in on this conversation, but just for the purpose of this conversation, because we are out in the world, many of us are in organizations, and this whole homosexual thrust that, you know, is going on right now, this equality and fairness and the comparison to the civil rights movement and all of that.
Oh no.
I'm trying to have this conversation because I want the people who are listening to be comfortable with pushing back on and participating. Dr. Ramadan, I know you're ready to say something. I'm gonna give you a moment. Participating in events in a way that they can be effective. This is not about, you know, beating up on anybody, because I know nobody else to tell me that there are men who have female tendencies. I've seen them at 2 and 3 years old acting that way. So I know that there are some out there that are having problems. So, but I'm talking about this whole movement that we should be standing against. Go ahead, Dr. Ramadan.
That's what we're dealing with now. We see that, we feel that, we see it every day. We see it in all the commercials. It's important as we've been doing today, getting to the grassroots of how things began, because they began down there in the genes and they spread upward. Okay, they start with the genes and then they go cultural, and then they become an agenda and they have a social impact, and they become a movement, and then they continue to go and grow. And then the new people coming on don't even consider about looking what's at the grassroots. They're caught up in the movement fervor. They feel that, oh, this is a movement equal to this movement, equal to this movement, equal to this movement. And they're not. They have different origins and they're motivated by different things. And some of them, and it doesn't mean that the people aren't sincere in the way they feel. That's what we have to continue to bring out. These people are as adamant as we are. They feel, I feel this as strong. They feel what they feel as strongly as we do about what we feel. They are that adamant, and we have to realize that. But if you don't get to the origin of where these feelings and the biology, the genetics of it, and expose that, and expose the influence of Satan in this, okay? Because we're up against a tough fight because they have adopted it as themselves, and that's a problem. So you have to. It has to be dealt with on many levels, and it is not an easy battle. It's not an easy, because it has to be dealt with biologically, socially, movement dynamics, in media, all of these things, because they are attempting to change really the nature of people. All
That's
right. They are attempting to do that.
And for sure, if they do that, man will become extinct because two men cannot have no babies. And so that's a reality. We have someone, I want to read this to you. She says, I have a nephew with Klinefelter. He has XXY chromosomes.
Right.
He likes to dress in women's clothing, like hanging out with women. He can change voice between female and male. Where does he fit? He is 16. At this point, we don't know where his final sexual preference will be. Okay, wait, before you answer that, we've already answered that chromosomes is gender specific.
Yeah.
Okay, and that biologically, it determines male and female. But now here is something that has been impacted by that list of things that you talked about, whether it's, but the human being has done something to mess with the chromosomes. Okay, go ahead. I want both of your comments on this. Dr. Nasir, you first.
Yeah, you only have X and Y. You have either XX or you have X and Y. There's an extra chromosome there in that case. That is the defect. The extra chromosome is the defect. So now how did that happen? Contribution from chemistry, industry, and intent. We have people who use scientific knowledge to intentionally cause disease so that they can supply the medications. It's a diabolic thing. Anyway, let me go back to this other point.
Okay.
We are against people trying to hijack the civil rights movement. We are against that. The civil rights movement is a movement for human rights. The lesbian and gay community is a movement for choice. It's not a human right. It's a choice. In other words, what I'm saying to you, the human right is to breathe air. That's a right of the human being. The choice of the human being is to smoke a cigarette. So his choice is against his own humanity. I'm trying to make little simple examples for people. The right for the person is to clean water. That's a human right. But you can have a movement to have a choice. Give me the choice to drink alcohol. So this is a differentiation between the Black human rights movement and this movement for choice. And the choice is against being a human. I'm gonna say this because, they're castigating us. I've been called a toxic male, you know what I mean, for my position. And I don't mind it. I don't have a problem. But this is what I say to them. You are running a dangerous cause because your position is anti-human. Listen to what I'm saying.
Right.
If you go around and you're a woman and you cut your breasts off, that's anti-human. You are hating yourself. If you're a male, you go around and you get your penis removed, that's anti-human. Don't attack me. I'm not cutting off any of your genitals. I'm trying to cut off the foolishness in your mind. Because listen, dear people in the gay community, we're trying to help you. If you remove your penis, that doesn't stop you from being a male. The male goes down to the molecules. The male goes down to the genes. The male goes all the way down to the elements, to the atoms. You see, you're looking at the male as a gross view. The male is deeper than what you can see microscopically. And the same thing with a female. If you cut your breast off, that doesn't stop you from being a female. You got hormones, you got cells, you got molecules. You have to take all of those molecules and hormones out, and then you won't be a female anymore. You won't be nothing anymore. You'll be dead. You see? And so what they have done, they have killed you as a human being in your body. When you are dead as a thinker in your body, then you will harm your body. You become the enemy to your own self. I hope I'm helping you. I really hope.
No, absolutely. I mean,
this is no attack. This is liberation. I want to see the lesbian and the human male, homosexual male come to this knowledge. You need a mirror. You have to be able to see yourself. You don't know what you look like right now until you stand in front of a mirror. When you look in a mirror, you can see what you look like at this moment. But if you're not in a mirror at this moment, you can't see yourself. So likewise, you have to have truthful knowledge. Truthful knowledge will reflect what you are to yourself, and then you can really see. Thank you. I just want to stop.
And Dr. Nasir, this is very, very important information, because my concern, Study Al-Islam, is concerned about our community having good information in order to stand on their position. And for me, the first point of information is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that it is against, it's for men and men to come together. That is and so now what you're doing for us is building upon that knowledge. But if I don't know anything else, I know that. Go ahead, Dr. Ramadan.
I think there's one other important thing I think it's important to add to this conversation is that, all of these things weren't intentional man provoked. Some things are done by Allah's leave. That's important to remember. It can be done. These chromosome abnormalities can have been occurring since way at the beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When we didn't have chemistry, when we didn't have toxic environments, when we didn't have anything, and weren't responsible for what was occurring. Some things occur by Allah's leave, by which He tests us.
Exactly.
By which He tests us to see if we still adhere to His word or to His plan or to His design. That concept is important. Okay. And see, a Klinefelter done 2 centuries ago would have a different impact or a different social context than one today.
Yes, exactly.
Why? Because the social context is different. He would now be expected to make a decision or act both ways or do, whereas 2 centuries ago, he wouldn't. Okay, he would make some kind of adjustment and appear one way and be guided by the religious doctrine at that time. So it is, as we said, this is layered on top of the biology, the social, impacts. That's very important to keep in mind, and that I think that's what I wanted to include in this conversation.
And I appreciate that. So is there, one of the, someone writes that this struggle is real for some people though. This struggle of male, female tendencies.
Right.
And female male tendencies, because I've seen some women out there that's real hard. So this is a real social problem. These people they're caught in the middle of this war that's going on. You know what I'm saying? Of choice, human choice over social choice. Go ahead, Dr. Ramadan. I see you want to say something.
I'm about to say, as are diabetics. Okay?
Right.
Yes.
Think about that. As are diabetics. Okay.
Hearing impaired.
That's right. They're hearing impaired. As are the other with mental problems. As are the other one with glasses problems. That's what doctors do, is treat medical problems. Okay. Those problems are for real. We're not poo-pooing the problems. We're not saying they don't exist. We're not saying that they don't require human energy to deal with. They are real problems to real people. And we are talking about the origins and the impact and what promotes them. and what's trying to be accepted by society and their agenda being promoted in society and the impact of that. Those are the things that we are pushing against.
Right.
So
I want to add something. I want to add something.
Please.
There's a big leader in the lesbian community. Her name is Camille Paglia, I think. She's a big leader. And to show you what we're really talking about, this woman is a PhD. She's not no little bitty woman. And she took a position that she was in support of a law to allow an adult male to have sex with a 14-year-old child, pushing that this be legalized. This is a danger we're talking about, okay? So it's much more than some individual having tendencies. We're talking about somebody trying to pass a law to legalize this kind of thing. And it's the situation, you know, I was raised in the Catholic Church, so I know what I'm talking about. And you got thousands of cases of pedophilia. What I mean, a male adult raping, I'm putting it in raw terms. We can't be playing games. Raping young boys, 10, 11, 14 years old. This happens, okay? Now we want to legalize it. So we have to be careful. We're not talking about a tendency. The individual is innocent. You know, the cripple, he's born crippled, he's born blind, they're innocent. But people who would take advantage of that, that's where we take our stand. And our stand is based on morality.
We have Dr. Jamila. Dr. Jamila wants to ask a question, and I want to bring her in because we got two male dominant. Dr. Jamila, please, Marsha, give her the ability to speak. Go ahead, Dr. Jamila. Assalamu alaikum.
Which Dr. Jamila? My dear sister, if you're talking about me, I apologize. I saw that hand, but I didn't intend to do that.
Okay.
I apologize.
No problem.
We needed to hear from a female anyway.
Well, at least I was trying to be fair.
Fitrah needed some help. Now we got two women.
Okay, so it's after 11 o'clock. Dr. Imam, Dr. Nasir, we're going to have to get you back with your PowerPoint. Dr. Ramadan, okay. I want to thank you for coming on and adding to this conversation. This is a conversation we should have. I want to, before we close, I want to know that we walk away with that the Quran clearly speaks to the topic on men being attracted to men in Surah 7, ayat 80, 81 in the following. The same goes for women being attracted to women. However, okay, so we know that it is against Quran. We do not accept it as normal behavior. Yes, this is a yes, no, Dr. Nasir. We do not accept same-sex attraction as normal behavior. Yes, no.
No, we do not accept it.
Dr. Ramadan, yes, no.
We do not accept.
Okay, now, but we do know that there are tendencies that have developed this. And Dr. Nasir, I'm gonna start with you. And those tendencies are influences from, go ahead. Those tendencies are influences from society or medical. Go ahead. You have the last word.
Chemistry, industry. The problem is the world corrupt culture has destroyed the original nature and brain of the person. That's the problem. The person's not thinking with his original apparatus intellectually. He's crippled. Yeah, and that's by intent. And most of these people are innocent. So we're not attacking. This is a liberation message to get them to think, well, maybe I need to think about what I say I am. You know, it's just like me, as black as I am, I'm gonna say I'm a white man in a black body. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Or if I say I'm a monkey in a human body, you would say that's ridiculous. So it's the same analogy.
Dr. Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah, I think he said it very well. I agree with that fully. And, you know, that, yes.
That this, that
we-
that these different influences are what's creating it. And so now we know our position. And so in these conversations, these are some of the influences that these are some of the points that we should be remembering in having these conversations, especially the point of the human right versus the social right. Dr. Ramadan,
yes.
the human right over the social right. Mhm.
They, you know, and these different arguing rights will it confuses a picture often. And you know, we all have rights. We have rights in America. We have rights to say what we want to. We have freedom of speech. We have all of these things. We have right to fight for the for the oppressed, and all of these things are mixed up into the picture. Right. And we got to realize all of the time to keep the focus on what are we talking about. We are fighting for homosexuality. That's what they're fighting for, okay? And if that isn't kept, and you know, and homosexuality is forbidden in Scripture, yes. And that's the point that has to be maintained. That's no matter how it is yeasted up and fixed up and made sweetened and whatnot, that is the issue. And then you have to put it to the individual. What does that mean for the individual? How is he impacted? Because we care about them, we're concerned about them and their struggle, just like all of the other ones, against greed, against everything that's against faith. It's another thing against faith, and we're against that. So you know, we have to keep the focus and keep our eye on the prize.
Right.
And one thing I want to add this. Who's the voice speaking for human nature? Who is the voice speaking for human nature? Who is the voice speaking for human nature? That's where we got to go.
Well, I want to.
Nothing can exist without being established in nature. The building cannot stand if it's not in nature. The tree cannot stand if it's not in nature. Grass cannot grow if it's not in nature. Nothing can exist if it's not in nature. Once you take it out of nature, you have limited its existence. It's a matter of time it's going to perish.
I just listened
Thank you, Dr. Ramadan. Thank you.
It becomes birth control.
I just listened to a recording of Imam Muhammad. I just listened to a recording of Imam Muhammad, and he said, let there be no altering of the original nature established by God. Let there be no altering of that. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Nasir, really, thank you so much. Dr. Ramadan, thank you so much. This community really appreciates both of your influence upon us.
Look, you started this. You started this years ago. This woman asked me and Kazim if she could do this. I said, what? Years ago, me and Kazim looked at each other and said, what is she asking us that for? The woman gives birth to all life. And this is the life now that's protecting the minds of humanity. Sister, you are in the role of protecting humanity. I'm